Founders Metals in the spotlight here today once more. They've had just recently had a nice little back-to-back 1-2 punch of news flow. First, there was the near tripling of Founders' already quite large land package, which was announced last week and was followed up this week by a $50 million strategic investment by Goldfields. Goldfields being the world's 7th largest gold producer by annual production, so no small name there. And so I've got Chris Taylor and Colin Padgett here, both of Founders Metals, here just to discuss this news. I kind of warned these gents before we got live here that of all times to maybe have a deep dive, more of a long form, I think this warrants this, I would suppose. So let's jump right into it, I guess. And before I go there, though, gentlemen, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for your time, and hope your day's off to a good start so far.
So far, always glad to be here.
Ask you again
That's
at the
how
end of this.
hardball the questions are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I'll do my level best not to ruin your guys' day here. Yeah. But why don't we start? So, you have these kind of this 1-2 punch, and I mean, I can't help but feel like there's some sort of correlation between them. But why don't we just tackle the land deal first? And actually, before we get there, though, I think maybe it makes sense just to help kind of contextualize and frame the conversation as we go. Maybe I'll ask both of you to do just a 30-second version of one and then a 30-second version of the other. So, Colin, I might ask you to give us 30 seconds on Goldfields, and then Chris, I might ask you to lead us into the discussion of land acquisition after that, and that will kind of lead us off into a larger conversation. So, Colin, maybe I'll just cede the floor to you, and I'll pass it off to Chris after.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it's been no secret that we've had a lot of interest in Antino and Founders Metals, and I think just that jurisdiction alone has warranted quite a bit of interest from a number of different groups. But was introduced to Goldfields early as part of this year, and just kind of started to develop a relationship with their team, and they were down to site and just really open with communication between the geologists and the technical piece, and that really became a focus of that conversation, is collaboration on the technical side and on the big picture exploration part. And so I think we have very similar views on that front, and they certainly see value in what was already, as you say, a big land package, but adding in the additional 36,000 hectares goes a long way as well.
And yeah, Chris, do you want to introduce the land deal for us too?
Yeah, that's a very exciting development for Founders, because I think, if memory serves, we've about tripled the land package that the company has under control. It's really important in this area because with all the exploration success that Founders is having, what we're seeing is that there's gold zones through this, all these splays off this major regional structure. And what we want to see is more control over these secondary structures, over portions of the main structure itself. And this is really something I think that the market and large gold mining companies are looking for, is controlling a commanding land position that covers just this plethora of gold targets.
And bringing imagery up here to hopefully complement the conversation here a bit. And so, but let's take that to launch into the land deal here then. And then obviously the hope is for all investors is that now that it's signed and sealed, some color can be added to public knowledge about just the process, and maybe draw the curtains back a bit here a little bit as we can, right? So, Colin, a couple of quick questions for you. Maybe just begin, when did land expansion talks begin? And then, part one, part two, when did they become more earnest?
I feel like they've been ongoing for quite a long time. It's been a lot of negotiating, a lot of work to get this sort of thing over the line. And there's, we've got a few irons in the fire. I mean, there's still government application in process for ground to the south and southwest. But overall, I mean, things have always been pretty earnest, but it takes time to get a good deal over the line, and I think that's what we have here.
And yeah, like I say, quick one-offs here just to help contextualize things. Financial details: how much did it cost? Any NSRs remaining? 100% ownership?
So 100% ownership for the concession. There will be no NSR associated with the deal. We're still finalizing the kind of the contingent payment or final details of that. So that'll all come out with a press release around the definitive agreement and closing the deal here, which we do actually anticipate to happen in relatively short order.
And maybe who were the counterparties in this negotiation? I guess I'm asking this, people that are maybe used to North American jurisdictional processes, right? Who were the counterparties, and who was represented at the table? And then maybe what were the negotiations like as you went?
Yeah, so this is 36,000 hectares. So that falls just under the 40,000 hectare max for exploration concessions. So this is a single exploration concession. It's owned by a private Surinamese company, and then a group of people underneath that company that you're negotiating not with just a single person, but a number of different people at the table. And that always means that there's going to be some back and forth, from our side to their side, but also they've got differing opinions on things. So it just takes time to really get that education piece across the line as far as what founders can do with this ground, and show them how that value can translate to them long term. But yeah, it's a time thing.
And Chris, I know that you've sort of started with this, but I might ask more directly or ask you maybe to expand on that. But discuss the rationale, right? There was already it was 20,000 hectares already, right? That's already a very large land package. With the level of success already seen here and an already large land package, why does this move make sense? Why was this move important enough for founders to make it happen?
Um, when you're in founder's position and you are on a series, it's like watching train cars pass with discovery after discovery. It's a reflection of the quality of the technical team that's in place here. They're very good at what they do, but it's also a reflection of the geology. And when you're in this part of Suriname, Suriname it's not an incredibly well-known jurisdiction for some explorers and producers. There is activity there's some major mines that are in country. But the location of the Founders Project, it's along the river and the southeast border of the country, and it's an area where there's quite a bit of artisanal mining that's taken place. Artisanal it's a loose term. If you're standing on site, you see that these are in fact pretty significant mining operations that are stripping off the highly weathered rock and getting all the gold out of it. But if I were sitting at the boardroom of a big mining company, and now we're looking at founders objectively from an outside perspective, I would say if I'm going to make a move into this country and a significant investment in this country, I'm going to want to see that we have a commanding land position. We don't just want to have the zones that Founders is already looking at. We want to have the potential to make a series of discoveries. And I think that speaks to the current value of the project, or how that's perceived, and the fact that there are multipliers of that value by going in and expanding over a larger territory. And it just makes it easier when you're growing a company in Founders position to talk about that potential upside. And you can already see, based on the high grade results that have been prospected from these new land packages, and also the artisanal mining that takes place there, that there is a great deal of upside potential. So it makes it an easy discussion to say, well, we're at this point now, but we think we're going to be 3x or 4x from the current position if we just put the money in place and do more exploration. So it's a great thing for the Founders Board to think of. We highly support expansion work into these areas, and it increases the perception and the upside of the company.
And
Yeah.
Chris, you were Colin, if you had a thought there, please jump in.
No, I agree wholeheartedly. I think it's building that long-term pipeline of targets. And I mean, we know that the prospectivity, is very high on Antino, and, this adds quite a lot more ground of that same potential, same caliber.
And Chris, one more here for you, and I'll weave back to Colin after that. You've been on the board now for just over a year. I believe it was October last year, announced that you were joining the board. And obviously you came on as an advisory role. You have experiences that I think the Founders as a young team, smart team, hungry team, young team that, that know to look for experience and look for guidance. You came on as a bit of an advisor in pursuit of that. What level of involvement were you at with this negotiation? Were you assessing data on the ground, geotechnical data? Were you helping navigate negotiations, or what were your contributions as they were to this process?
Well, we've had technical discussions about this and adjacent land packages for some time. Like since I got involved in the company, this has been an ongoing discussion. I have had a number of technical discussions with Colin. I think Colin uses me as a bit of a sounding board for some of these ideas. And to be honest, he doesn't need me. He knows what he's doing, and he's doing a great job. But I'm always happy because I feel like I'm part of another major discovery process. So it echoes Great Bear in my mind and heart. And I'm always happy to contribute my 2 cents when they come in handy. So there's certainly been a lot of discussion about this, other technical items, and just the broader interest that Founders has engendered in the market.
And Colin, maybe we'll circle back to the actual negotiation process before we move on to discussing the actual land and its prospectivity. and I'll keep this open-ended for you to take it in the direction that you feel most relevant. But were there growing pains or unexpected hitches or complexities, anything of that note that you might remark on either side of the negotiation? Anything that was unexpected challenges to be surmounted? Anything you can discuss there?
In terms of the actual negotiations for the
Yes,
land
yeah,
package itself.
yeah, navigating the negotiation process itself. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just there's always an evolution to these negotiations, and I mean, we're not the only people in country that are interested in this sort of land package. We've certainly, with the discoveries that we've made, we've drawn a lot of attention to this area, and so there's big mining companies sniffing around. There's lots of big private operators, and so the vendors they had other people to talk to, and so we've really got to make sure that our value proposition as a buyer, beyond just the dollar amount, makes sense to them. And so conveying that, again, kind of that education piece, I think was a really big part of it, and was a challenge early on. Uh, but obviously, we got there.
Well, yeah, and I think that's one key advantage of demonstrating the scale that you have, that you can carry things forward to success in a rapid timeline compared to perhaps smaller competitors. Land itself, I mean, to me, it sounds broadly much the same as the original Antino. Alluvial mining, I think I have it here, right? Substantial historic workings, some historic modern exploration in the form of this auger sampling anomaly, this grid up here, but still very much underexplored from a modern exploration sense, which again echoes a lot of what I would say Antino was a year and a half or 2.5 years ago. And Chris, maybe I'll start with you again just to get you in here, and Colin, again, please jump in. And this might just be a simple confirmation, but presumably these all remain gold plays, generally analogous to current models. This is, Guyana Shield or orogenic gold, or is there something different or unique potentially as well, kind of lurking about?
Oh boy. Well, we have seen some different types of targets as well. Like there's some geochemistry and some metal associations that I'm quite surprised of. I don't have an answer for that yet, but it has been surprising. Generally, though, most of the gold that we're looking at would be typical for what we would expect to see in this area. It's just that there's other things. Colin, I don't want to speak out of turn, so I'm going to keep quiet on details. We do see some geological surprises, but we see a lot more of what we were looking for here on this project initially, which is this type of gold system.
Yeah. And just to jump in or to add to that, I mean, that's exactly that. I mean, the Canark Resources was a company that had done exploration on this ground before, and so you've got a decade plus of exploration work, and back then logistics weren't as straightforward as they are today for us on site, and so you have some people spending a lot of time getting in there, doing some very good geology work. We've got geophysics that covers a good portion of the new concession area. And then we already had a bit of those historic data sets ourselves prior to this. And yeah, I think that there's a lot of opportunity for finding more of what we're already looking for. Like that orogenic model is still going to be the number one thing we're hunting for. But as Chris mentioned, we have seen some other, there's some base metal signatures. There's some interesting things that have started to tease out of that data compilation work, and I mean we've just gotten our hands on all of that data, so I think there's still a lot more to uncover just in what is a bit of a treasure trove of information that's come in with the concessions.
Well, and I think let's follow up with you and Pascal have a pretty good story about setting off into the jungle to just stake the original Antino. That's been a good one I've heard a couple of times. And maybe the natural question is compare and contrast. What are the similarities and differences, and if I can call them new Antino and old Antino, if that works for now, right? In terms of amount of exploration data, scale of alluvial workings, communities involved. I mean, what are the key similarities or differences that you had to understand or navigate, I guess, again?
Yeah, I think so when you get further off to the westernmost part of the concession, I mean, some of the challenges that will come up there will be, if we've got things to get to, there's an access piece. We're finding more and more that there's roads in more and more places than we ever anticipated. One of the big things that we don't have right now for the new ground is LiDAR. And I think always been very clear on that being kind of step one for exploration in these terrains. And so getting that, I think, is going to reveal a lot more of those access points in terms of roads and paths and that we can take advantage of. Community wise, no different than the current Antino project. There aren't any communities on the property. So we're not faced with any new or different challenges that way. Um, yeah, we're actually quite well located realistically. Like with where Antino, our main camp is, we're kind of central to what is that overall larger land package. I mean the white box, which holds all of our labels now. There's a good road network in between or within that concession area as well. So it does connect us quite well to the rest of it. But overall, I think it's very similar. It's something we're familiar with, so we'll be able to get work done. I think at a similar pace that we've been attacking things at Antino.
On that original timeline of you and Pascal, did you pass on this land before? And is this just a simple matter of now that you're down there and established with infrastructure and a scale that you can kind of return to these more farther afield projects? Or is this land that you had not previously scoped out?
We scoped it out, but I definitely did not pass on it before. Yeah, no opportunity arose where we did or would ever have let it go. No, I think the strategic value here, like that's another thing too, is there wasn't a lot of exploration going on in Suriname when we got into the country, and we've built I think a very good reputation in Suriname as just good corporate citizens, and we have good community relationships locally. And now having this larger land package, I think we've been able to add that. We've been able to, hopefully we'll be able to add some more down the road, is a product of having those relationships. And I'm not sure that new companies coming in today can necessarily put this sort of put this together like this. So it's a differentiator for sure.
And maybe this will be the classic softball question. I'll lob your way here, right? But what is the most compelling piece of evidence that you have that justifies this, whether it be a zone or a particular data point? And I guess I'll get both of you to answer that, right? But if you only had one zone or one piece of data that you can present to people to demonstrate why this is so compelling, what do you point at as an early favorite?
I mean,
Colin?
I think the only data point you need to justify it is the auger anomaly that sits immediately across our pre-existing concession boundary, off of Upper Antino. So it's 800 meters from kind of the edge of the property, our most northwest drilling, to that 49-gram sample in historic auger. So that alone, I think, justifies the opportunity. And then you take 5 kilometer plus auger anomaly in the north there, and then all that high grade stuff, and that's 4 or 5 separate shear zones that have been mapped out. There's so much opportunity, and like it all looks small on a map like this, but this is now 560 square kilometers. It's a lot of ground. So yeah.
I wasn't going to ask this, and don't let me forget, Chris. I'll get back to you, but I have to ask, as you said that, who was in charge of units of measurement for this news release, where you settled on Manhattan as your comp for unit of measurement? Whose final call was that?
So there were quite a few different size comparators that went around, and we were trying to think of something that the largest swath of investors would be able to conceptualize, and it's a pretty big area, so it's sometimes hard to find something that works for everybody.
And so, yeah, Chris, same question, circling back here. Just what's the one most critical piece of data right now that you think makes this whole thing worth it?
Well, I mean, as you know, I think people know I'm working in France right now, and I'm looking at some of these artisanal ancient mining projects, like ancient mining sites. And if you look at the land package that Founders has just added right now, there's a whole pile of alluvial mining, for instance, and it's impossible that all of that gold has originated from known sites. And so this means like that project is shedding gold over broad areas. And certainly with that scale of alluvial mining in place, like you're going to have a number of new gold discoveries associated with sourcing that material. So it'd be a lot like working, for instance, people would be familiar with the Yukon and following up gold-bearing creeks. I mean, you're basically looking at something similar here. It speaks to me that there's a lot more gold on that land than what is currently known.
Excellent. And so, a couple more follow-up questions here. We'll transition over to Goldfields here shortly, gentlemen. Colin, do you just want to discuss where does this fit in, right? How much overall focus will this new territory take, overall for founders in the near to medium term? I know you can't really give me a precise exact percentage, but I assume that there's got to be, a well-developed, at least general sense of, say what the 12-month plan is for new Antino and how it fits in the big picture. What is the kind of energy expenditure anticipated on it?
So I mean, it's a lot of ground. You're not going to run around over every square kilometer and start poking holes. I mean, we're going to take a very systematic approach to exploring this ground, and that's it starts with we're working on sorting out the helicopter time right now, but I mean, the idea is to expand the geophysical survey that we have happening to cover this ground. So that gives us that big data set. LiDAR is another one, getting that in place, and then starting to work on the same sort of property-wide geochemical survey work that we're now doing on, I guess, Antino 1.0. So it's building those data sets and then building a pipeline of targets by priority. And the whole package winds up slipping into the existing pipeline, and we wind up prioritizing all of the targets collectively. And it's based on proximity to Upper Antino, which is kind of current center of mass. It's based on high grade versus potential for broad lower grade. There's a lot of factors that come into where things fit in that hierarchy of where we spend our time, and then ultimately our dollars. Yeah, it's still it becomes all one collective Antino.
No, fair. And then, so I mean, maybe more of the direct question involved. Does this risk straining your service providers or your local knowledge base at all, either technical or trades, or maybe conversely, more of a positive spin, right? How much will you have to grow the team now to fit this new land, right? What needs do you have to be filled now based on this new growth?
Yeah, I don't really think we see a gap that way. I mean, we've got a pretty well-established team right now, and from an exploration standpoint, in terms of the number of drills we have and our capacity that way, I think we're in a really good position. We've been able to connect with some local operators on the auger sampling or the geochemistry front, and that's helped a lot with capacity and just pace of getting that work done. So I see maybe some expansion that way in terms of contractor work, but otherwise, it's pretty much keep going with the team that we have.
And then you mentioned one, and this is a one that's kind of been a to say a well-known secret or something, right? But that your Upper Antino, there was this large, obviously extremely highly prospective chunk of it that just and the invisible border of the original land package sort of terminated your ability to explore it, right? And so now that it's in the bag and it's home and it's part of the founder's family, did that sort of and this is a classic question that a lot of small explorers struggle with, right? Is how close to the border do you get to potentially prove up someone else's discovery, right? But did that ever weigh on your exploration strategies at all? And I know I've asked you this before, but maybe I thought now that it's, like I say, in the bag and it's yours, there's a certain degree of honesty that can happen now. Not to imply that never was otherwise, but yeah, just, I mean, did it ever weigh on your exploration strategies at all in terms of kind of delaying or avoiding it just in case sort of thing, or no, not really?
I mean, no, I mean, of course it does. I mean, we don't want to be spending our dollars and drilling holes on ground that we don't actually control. So having it now means that we can move forward on that. I mean, I think the prospectivity, and it was no secret to the vendors either. They could see where Upper Antino ends, and the overall trend. It's well marked on our maps. So, but it meant that we weren't actively going out there to drill holes that we.
Yeah, not going to throw 15,000 meters into it. Yeah, no, fair enough. Well, and then, I mean, so similar question, right? And again, this sort of hindsight, and I know that the corporate veil and the ability to speak freely comes after everything's done, right? And so maybe again, just a question for people who have followed along, have the negotiations on either of these fronts, have they, I mean, and I don't mean to use negative language, hindered or delayed or just even impacted operations at all? Even just on a level of time and energy consumption, did this kind of rob, you have a lot of hungry mouths to feed, and these were very important deals to get across the end zone into the end zone. Did you find that there was maybe that sort of impact on other aspects of Founder's work?
I mean, both this and the the Goldfields transaction, I think are things that take a lot of bandwidth from management and from the board as well. And there's only so much time to go around. So what you're using up there, you maybe can't put into or focus on something else, but you balance that as best you can.
Yeah, it's certainly a good problem to have, right? And I think that's been Founders all along the way. Founders has been beset by good problems to have, right? That's a good problem to have. Yeah. But let's transition to Goldfields, and you can see the auger. This was I was looking at that and was just quite astounded at the sheer scale of your sampling programs going on there. It's quite large.
Yeah.
But let's switch to Goldfields, right? So $50 million strategic investment, Goldfields. I think that's about a 10%, 10 or 12% now ownership stake they've got in Founders, and I'll ask that of you later. But I guess for me, and this is me editorializing, when I see the $50 million strategic investment here, and then you have this massive increase in land packages, almost starts to feel like I don't know if it's being cutesy or not, but sort of an internal spin-out company, right? That whole bunch of new land, and now here's $50 million to get after it. I know it's not that simple, but I guess maybe what's the question to ask of you here? I mean, you're already well funded, right? You already had $40 million in working capital. As I say, sort of switching gears now to the strategic investment. What's the purpose of that additional 50 million? I know that you have kind of the generic blurb in the news release, but what does it buy you, or what does it advance for you that otherwise would have had to wait its turn in line to see it happen?
Well, I think the generic blurb is actually true. We will do the things that it says in there, for the working capital piece, and the focus of those dollars is on
Mhm.
on exploration. The 40 million number there too is also, I think that was as of May 31st, or that kind of most recent quarterly financial statements. So I mean, we've been spending money since then, so it was a bit lower number than that. Um, Overall, I mean, it's Goldfields wanted to come in, and they, I think, wanted this to be a meaningful investment, and having the new ground. And it is, in some respects, it's, I think, as simple as you stated at the beginning. I mean, this is now dollars for us to spend on continuing to explore the original Antino. Nothing changes about the plan there, but it's money that goes into uncovering, or new discoveries, and building the overall project. It's, I think, very well timed on that front.
And I
Well,
guess Chris, if you have a thought there, Chris.
yeah, I mean, it's the second time that we've seen a strategic investment into Founders from a large mining company. And, that's, it's a second endorsement. And I really like the fact that this is money that's going to be spent on exploration, because it validates everything that Colin's been talking about, and that the board believes in, is that there will be new discoveries on that expanded land package, on the existing land that we had. And this recognizes the fact that that will be transformative for the company. And it's great to see the endorsement from a highly skilled technical team that isn't ours, but agrees with ours. And so I uh, I think it's great.
They obviously have excellent taste, right? Yeah, that's right. Um, And so I guess, Colin, I'll ask you sort of the same question I asked Chris, or asked of the land acquisition. And you mentioned that you met Goldfields initially some time ago, but similar question. I know that you've had a number of suitors, and I know there's a number of conversations always ongoing when you're in the position you are in as a CEO of a large and successful Explorco. How long has Goldfields been kicking the tires? And again, maybe can you discuss when did that sort of transition to a more serious, more earnest conversation with them?
Um, I don't know, when kicking the tires. Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of the earliest part of this year is kind of the first introduction. But as I said, and I think you just mentioned, I mean, there's been a lot of people interested in Founders and in the Shield as a whole. And um, yeah, I think it's always been something of an earnest conversation as far as their interest. They've always been pretty serious about being interested in the property, but to getting down to site, doing that over the course of the summer. Amongst others. Uh, Institutional, like, there's always the investor side of things, and you get corporates that are coming through. We've always been pretty open with data room access at this kind of stage of things. But yeah, we're just really happy to get it over the line. I think it is a pretty strong vote of confidence, and they do have a very strong technical team, and a, a real, I think, willingness to have boots in the ground, and have people actively engaged in exploring this, well, Antino, and now Antino 2.0.
And so I wanted to ask, well, maybe a really quick one here, maybe before we kind of jump forward into something a bit more meaty. But is it 12%? What will their ownership stake in Founders be after this is closed, after it's done?
It's right around 10.6.
10.6%.
Yeah.
Okay. And then maybe, Chris, I'll ask you this one, and this was just harkening back to something that I think both of you touched on earlier in the conversation. Obviously, the headline deal will be the $50 million. That's not chump change. And I mean, Goldfields, 2 million ounces a year plus, a truly global producer. But both of you sort of touched on the technical team and the technical aspect being maybe potentially, in terms of a retail reading that news release, maybe undersung or underappreciated just how important having the backing of these majors in terms of their knowledge base and the expertise they can throw at these projects. Maybe again, fairly open-ended question, but Chris and then Colin, you can obviously jump in afterwards. But what does it mean to even a very intelligent and successful company like Founders? How does having a mid-tier major like Goldfields jump in like this? What does that do for their technical expertise and knowledge?
Well, it is a highly competent team. Like the data quality that Founders has been collecting has been excellent. And it was one of the, frankly, I'm going to have to be anecdotal. So forgive the old man for rambling on about the past. But, it was one of the things that got Great Bear over the line was that we had very high quality data collection. And in fact, when Kinross bought the project, they told us that, maybe I speak out of turn, but they said, this is as good or better than what we would have produced in the same situation. And that means that they were able to use our models, they were able to use our maps, they were able to use all the drill information that we had directly, and it saved a lot of time and money, and it made their decision process to buy the company a lot easier. And that was the same for others that we had as suitors. In the founder situation here, I mean, Pascal and Vincent, these guys, the whole technical team, they're very competent. They're collecting great data. But you have a group like Goldfields coming in. They have resources that a junior just doesn't have. They have databases that a junior just will not have. And they're quite interested in a strong technical collaboration with the team. What that means is we get the benefit of salaried professionals that focus on nothing but this, that are highly interested in the success of the company, that founder shareholders don't have to pay for directly. So you're not out of pocket for very high skilled people. And they're going to be, when those skills are needed, they'll be available to the company, and it'll just help these projects advance even more quickly.
Well, you know what? I might go back for another old man anecdote here, Chris, if that's all right, because the follow-up question
Sure.
is, that maybe the one thing I see is that I found one or two other examples, I forgot to bring them up here, of juniors with two strategic investors, two major producers involved. It's a bit of a rarity. It's not totally unheard of. It's a bit of a rarity. Usually you just see, one big brother jumping in. What does it, so I suppose, what does a second deal of this nature with a second larger, I mean, Goldfields is a tier up from B2. How does that make sense? Is there potential for conflict, or is there maybe a risk of too many cooks in the kitchen? And like I say, there's not really a real hard data point to speak to this objectively. So if you have anecdotal evidence, I welcome that now. But yeah, just thoughts on that front.
Well, I think in a lot of cases, companies benefit from either having no strategic investment on the one side, so zero, or two. Or three, because you definitely want a balanced position. And certainly like there's a factor of appreciation of what you have when people have access to information, data. They follow the public markets. If your disclosures are very good, that can cover the basis. But something like this, I think, it validates the fact, like if you look at a share price chart for Founders over the last year or so, you see that the share price came off. But the quality of the work that was being done was very high, and there was value being built, even when it wasn't reflected in the share price. And that value that was being constructed is reflected in the investment here from Goldfields. They saw good quality work, they saw good quality data, and they saw that what the company was doing was adding value that was not appreciated. So what they got was a good entry point on their shares. I'm sure they're going to do very well on that investment, but it also shows you what the company was up to, was building value that maybe isn't immediately appreciated by the market. And then suddenly you rip the Band-Aid off and everybody can see that you've got this kind of, this is what you were working on behind the scenes.
Well, I think that's it. I mean, and not to be too dismissive of market sentiment, but the certain degree of wailing and gnashing of teeth because it took some time to trade sideways rather than just continuing on with another 30 bagger over another so second consecutive 30 bagger, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Not to be dismissive of that, but I think that again, victim of its own success. I guess, and so having, like you say, having Goldfields come on and drop $50 million, I don't know if it gets a lot more confirming in terms of obvious market evidence that that serious players are taking this project very seriously. No real question there, I guess, but just a thought that I had wanted to at least get out there. But maybe, Chris, we just have a few more questions left here. And Chris, I just wanted to give one to you, just about you just reflected on your own time at Founders, and we can discuss things at the end here again. But as I said, you joined here a year ago, October last year, and we spoke then about how you sort of helped to get this team calibrating on sort of a more macro level on how to attack this project properly. The center of mass, center of gravity, I thought was a good analogy that came out of your joining. Maybe can you just reflect on that, right? What has your role been in Founders thus far, now that you're nicely into it, and how has it evolved or changed over time? And obviously this means, of course, balancing things with your own projects you got going on too, right? But just maybe reflection on your time with Founders thus far.
Like fascinating. I would say absolutely fascinating. Started off with after I joined, we did a trip down to site, and Colin and I and others were quadding around in the jungle, which was the first time I'd done that. Torrential afternoon rain, which they're used to, and I'm not. I'm not. I got to experience bats crawling around the wall of my cabin at night, keeping me awake all. So 100% sleep deprivation, percent sodden clothes. It was totally awesome. And so for myself, that was a bit of an adventure. But, now we get into the corporate adventure side of it. And, there's a lot of parallels between work that I've done before, which went really well on just this sequential discovery train. And these guys are on that kind of train. It's pulling away from the station. The technical work keeps being fruitful, and they have the same kind of interest from big gold producers that we were seeing on the Great Bear side. Like, it just keeps expanding over time, and that builds its own kind of momentum. So I enjoy my role with the company because it's somebody like, at least when Colin is dealing with the situation, for instance, on the Suitor side, he can always pick my brain, and we can exchange, or I can relay stories, old man style, as that seems to be a theme of this conversation. And, but certainly there's always parallels. Like, successful deals have strong parallels to each other. This is a successful deal. I've been fortunate enough to have a very strong team like he has, and to be involved in a successful deal. And I just try to relay that experience. So for myself, from the beginning over a year ago to now, it's just been, it's been wonderful entertainment. I really like the technical team. I really like the data, the potential of this project. Like, can you imagine if this was sitting in West Africa, what would already be there today? It kind of blows your mind, actually. Like, I don't know, but it could be tens of millions of ounces, right? If it was in an environment that was more heavily exploited. And so as a geologist, you need to compare apples to apples here. And, you're looking at systems that predate the Atlantic Ocean. Well, let's basically extend that geology across. And it's very obvious what this could be. And it's very obvious to the market, to the gold producers in the world. They're looking for areas like the Guyana Shield because they understand that potential. And, it was very, very good foresight on the behalf of Founders team, the management team, the executive here, basically to put this land package together, because you're controlling excellent real estate. And it's like a regular real estate deal. It's location, location, location. This way, it's really the upcoming location for like major gold discoveries. It's a privilege to be involved.
No, and you're absolutely right. At almost anywhere else in the world, this would already be multiple gold camps, and like you say, decades of exploitation already occurred, right? And it's just the luck of the draw and the good luck of Founders that it's all theirs now, due to those sort of that relative lack of modern exploration there in Suriname. Maybe, Chris, one more for you, and then we can circle to a conclusion here. But just in terms of industry feedback, right? I mean, when you're kind of out and glad handing and shaking hands and meeting people and discussing Founders, what's the sort of content that comes up? Questions that they ask, or ideas that they have, or comments or opinions that they share with you?
Yeah, well, the story within the industry, the story is very well known. And so I'd be happy, if I wasn't doing anything else, I would be happy to introduce myself as a director of Founders. The last time that I talked about Founders was half an hour before this call, when I was on a previous call. And so definitely came up. So I've seen like a shareholder base. It's a widely distributed shareholder base. Like people that know and understand the industry know this story, right? So they know the potential of the story. I talk to a number of founder shareholders directly all the time. Typically, a news release will come out, and then my phone starts ringing. What do you think? And it's a lot like this conversation. I just reiterate the point that they're on to this is a major system that they've got on their hands. They've got a chunk of a major system. And this is going to be a story that unfolds over a number of years. So I think the only feedback that I've got that could be perceived as negative is, well, you'd had that, 30 bagger, last year. Well, what's going on right now? Well, you've got to consolidate and you've got to make moves and you've got to give Colin and other guys, on the team time to get their ducks in a row. And then boom, you go through, the next sequence of transformative events, like another major investing in the company. And now you can imagine what'll happen once the exploration starts and the drilling starts on these other new targets, how exciting that would be as a shareholder to see new discoveries continuing to be made.
Yeah, you gotta let them cook, as the kids say these days.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotta ask Chris, did the other call you an old man repeatedly too, or is that just my luck?
No. Everything was good this morning too. So I will admit that I put on a clean shirt just in case. I'm not sure if this was going to be a video format or not.
That's good.
I look a little better than I did half an hour ago.
Good. I'm glad you dressed up for the occasion. No,
Yeah.
excellent. And so calling back to you here, maybe, and this maybe there'll be sort of just be a classic end of interview conversation question, but maybe shoehorning it into the conversation around new money and new land. Will we see before end of year? I guess maybe can you maybe I'll just ask it simply. Can you just discuss the next 2 or 3 months of news flow that we can expect, or even what is the company getting up to, and maybe what we might expect to see publicized in the next quarter or so?
Yeah, for sure. So I expect that we'll have quite a bit of drilling results. We do anticipate completing the 60,000 meters before year's end, and anything what we've got back for assays and things on that, getting that out to the market. There's the exploration work that's going on right now outside of the Upper Antino piece. Results pending for Maria Giralda, Arbo. It's been kind of one of those. There's been some slightly different things about Parvo that have been pretty interesting for us, and then the Da Vinci drilling, and then we're still moving on to continue testing those other targets that have been part of the plan for this dry season. So yeah, exploration drilling results. We'll have Upper Antino, Lower Antino Boise type results as well, and yeah, beyond that, I think there's still lots of corporate items. Hopefully we get some more land together and with through that government piece and just finish it off with a bang. So we're going to be very busy. There should be lots of news.
Excellent. Well, no, I think last call, gents. Otherwise, I think I'm happy with this line of questioning. I don't think I exhausted anybody too hard here. I got done around the time I did. But any final thoughts, Tyler, gents?
Yeah, it's a little bit on my side. Like I've said some of these comments before. Sometimes you just have to sit back and enjoy the show. And I think it's going to be a great show for the remainder of this year and all of next year with founders.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think there's it takes time to get through all these big exploration steps, particularly with the new ground and these surveys and digesting that information and making that plan. So we've got a lot of exciting exploration opportunities, I think, over the next many months. So we're going to stay busy.
Yeah, no, as a company that has experienced the large number of inflection points, it's hard not to see this kind of 1-2 punch of new land and a lot of money coming in, a lot of capital coming in, and technical expertise as another potential inflection point moving forward. So yeah, Founders Metals, great story, good guys. And yeah, Colin, Chris, thanks for your time, and we'll connect again soon, I'm sure.
It's great talking again. Yep.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot, man.